Hi everyone, Comic Book Reviewer here, this time reviewing on Destro, issue number 1, Image Comic Review. Now, as you know, since obviously Image Comics now have the rights to Transformers and G.I. Joe, they've also now done G.I. Joe again now after getting back the rights from IDW. And this issue is meant to feature the origin and a completely new take on Destro, who's obviously supposed to be a foil to Cobra Commander and a little more competent. So the cover mainly has Cobra Commander looking at Destro, and the story starts off in the Republic of Doclonia. We kind of see how the Prime Minister is trying to keep the situation under control, so sends off his soldiers to kind of help deal with the problem. And we kind of see them saying, "The revolution is cancelled, I'm afraid, boys and girls, on account of your inferior firepower." Until we see a sort of android-like robot showing up, and of course, it's meant to be a battled android trooper, which is obviously meant to be known as Bat, and is an advanced prototype, and makes quick work of the soldiers as they try to kind of escape, but more and more are deployed. And this is where it all breaks out, and we kind of see how the Prime Minister now realises he's now been defeated. Right away, we kind of see how the sort of freedom fighters see that the Bat prototypes now analysed them, and something happens. And we kind of see how Destro says, "The Darkolian people accept your resignation, Prime Minister." And we see how Destro and his forces march in, and of course he points out that he's now taking over, and even makes it clear that his cousin will sort out Prime Minister affairs. And we kind of see how he was bleeding the money dry from the whole people, and when the crops start drying up and the drought happened, he did nothing. And that obviously they're going to want to personally see him, but of course commit suicide before it happens. And we see how Cobra Commander says, "Destro, I am displeased. I provided you with the energon you required to make your Bat prototypes a reality." And we kind of see how he points out, due to the prototypes being a little more earlier than what they should be, they just basically aim at anything with a face until they're switched off. And we see him saying, "So they are useless. They cannot be deployed on one side field troops for now." And we kind of see how Cobra Commander points out that he's trying to make an army, and it's not helping that Destro's making the situation worse. And he says, "To my organization, I run Mars, not Cobra. We are in business together. I will build your machines work with you towards your goal, but I am not your subordinate. Remember that." And of course, we see how Destro heads off into the Scottish Highlands to go to the temple of his ancestors, and points out about all the good that he's found from the energon and that Cobra can do with it. And of course, all of his ancestors wear masks due to an incident that happened with one of their family members. We see how in Doclonia, a young woman known as Carton Riz is going to be heading off to the expo, and of course saying, "If you've seen one legal arms fair, you've seen them all." And we see how Destro's cousin Autumn is showing off the first annual expo, and of course have to keep all words of this a secret. And we see how every puppet dictator, world leader and that are impressed with everything Destro's done. And we see how Destro shows up to kind of talk with the people, kind of offering to support their ideas and that. And we kind of see how one of Destro's workers points out that they've done a queen sleep of all of the vendors, and everything seems okay. But we see how Destro mentions where Tomok and Samok are, And of course, they're obviously in South America and aren't happy with one of sort of the sort of general leaders that obviously got himself and his men put in danger. But we kind of see how Tomok and Samok point out the Crimson Guard would have showed up a lot sooner. But of course, this is Tomok and Samok pointing out and analysing everything that would have happened. But we also see how Tomok says, "We do not make promises, we consult. We provide risk assessments. We provide the manpower and equipment necessary to put our advice to action. Plans must be adaptable. Our Crimson Guard was just briefly deceived to intercept enemy supplies. That was discussed with the General." Wait, with the General? So of course they have to teach, obviously, the sort of commanding leader a lesson, and obviously kills off all of his men as punishment, and quickly axe him off. And they even talk with the general. They make it clear they're going to deal with Destro's problem and deploy bombs. Right away, we see how Destro tries to get his men to help deal with the enemy forces. And we obviously see how, with everything going on, Destro has to save, obviously, Carton Ritz from getting blown up. And Destro saying, "Must I be surrounded by fools?" And obviously saves her just in time. And also realises that the bomb was a dud, and says, "It would appear that I am at war." And ending the story there and there. So I think the story is okay, but it obviously feels like that I'm reading an Origins Doctor Doom storyline. And it feels like it is taking some inspiration a bit from Doctor Doom's origin. Obviously, they're trying to kind of make Destro into a kind of copy and paste-ish Doctor Doom, even though there's a lot you can do with Destro in a new take of G.I. Joe. I think, well, yeah, it isn't a good issue, but it is trying to show you the differences between Cobra Commander and Destro. It also makes it clear in the first issue that Cobra wants to be kept under wraps for the time being, but Destro is more determined to test his field projects and all that, despite Cobra Commander's pleas. So it definitely deserves thumbs in the middle. Kind of alright, but kind of okay. So, Comic Book Reviewer here, signing out.